Go ahead.
Welcome to the Pulling Around Show. Today we've got Jerry McWorter, a world famous cue maker. He is also a musician, a director. He's produced some cue shows. He was the president of the Cue Makers, American Cue Makers Association, and many other things you're going to find out in this video. I got to meet him this weekend, and he was probably the most helpful person to me in the entire building, even with helping me find out the best questions to ask cue makers. I got to go to breakfast with him, play one pocket with him, just an all-around great guy, and we want you to get to know him today.
Okay, so
Welcome to.
first rule, you're not allowed to ask me what's my favorite wood to work in.
Okay.
That one you can't ask.
All right.
Okay.
You're not allowed to tell about questions.
Oh no, we get that a lot. Ask me
Oh,
this.
good. Yeah.
So how did you first get started in cue making?
That was the second question you're not allowed to ask. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I made my first cue in high school wood shop. I started playing pool when I was 16, kind of playing in the bowling alley, and friend had a table and that, and I got interested in it. And then I was in wood shop and metal shop and stuff in school, and I made my first cue in wood shop. So I guess I was 17, 16, 17.
Did it play good?
No, I don't think it ever got to that stage. I took the joint and hardwood from another cue, and I still have the cue, and it had a leather wrap on it and stuff. And I used the hardware from another cue, but I think I got distracted and found a better cue or something. I don't think I ever really finished it.
Okay, I gotta go straight to you being a child magician and performer. Can you just walk us through that?
Well, like most kids, I was interested in magic as a kid and had stumbled across some books or something and learned a few things. And then I went to a little magic store in town that opened up, and I met a young man there. I think he was probably 18. I think maybe 18 or 19. And he was working the magic shop, but he was a performing magician, and he was very good and very experienced and a working magician. And he was, I think, 19. And I became friends with him, and he started showing me all kinds of, there's the technical stuff, there's the sleight of hand and working with cards and coins and all the technical things that I just put unbelievable amount of hours in practicing. But he was the most influential in getting me gigs and teaching me how to perform and teaching me how to talk and how to talk to people and how to present yourself and be interesting and perform. So he had a gig at a restaurant. He was working a few days a week at a restaurant that was 30 minutes from me. And he went on to do something else, and he gave me the gig. So I started working at this restaurant. I was 15. And my mom had to drive me back and forth to the gig. But I'm dressed in a suit, and I just handled myself much older than I was. And through him, his name is Eric Nolan, and he was the most influential in really teaching me how to perform and put on a show. And that has served me in everything I've done in my life. So,
Can you tell us your best trick?
no. I mean, I haven't touched any of it in decades. I don't even remember anything. It's kind of funny. It's kind of like a musician that's can play the instrument, but they can't remember the songs anymore. My hands would still work with practice, and I understand, what a close-up magician is doing, but I don't remember the songs anymore. So, yeah, it just was a phase in my life that I think the most important skill that's carried my whole life is learning how to learn and being willing to suck and being willing to show your ass.
Okay.
And that I learned very early, and being willing to bomb and just, that's how you learn. That's really how you learn. It's practice. It's like pool. Practice is one thing, but getting in a match or gambling and playing somebody, it's a whole nother animal. And your mind scatters, and the skills that you develop under the pressure are the things that really count and work. And that was the same in all kinds of performance, and that's what I learned from the magic, is I learned how to learn. I don't think I was really ever particularly talented at anything, but I learned how to learn and did a lot of things at very high level because of it. It was mainly I was just willing to suck and embarrass myself, you know.
Well, you're incredibly talented. I've listened to some of your music that you shared with me. I've watched you play one pocket. You might be, if not one of the best playing cue makers I've ever met. I mean,
yeah, now probably, not 20 years ago. You know, when I was coming up, there was a number of really good players that did go into cues. John Guppy is one of them, your local hero there. But Bill Stroud, who made Joss West cues, was a good player. I mean, obviously Mike Siegel is the best. He was, bona fide champion pool player, maybe the best, more wins than anybody ever. Yeah. And then went into cue making, and he did it for a good 10 years, and he earned his bones, But I was one of his people that, I was friendly with them, and he was there slugging it out and learning the craft. I was already well established by the time he started doing it. But Mike Siegel's the best. The next one would have been Bob Hunter, who was making cues out of Chicago for more than 20 years. He'd won major championships and World Straight Pool tournaments and World 9-ball tournaments, and accomplished player. So there was a number of them, years ago. There's a lot of cue makers too that can't hardly make a ball. That's not good. So and I've never known a cue maker that can't play that makes a good playing cue. Kind of funny. You'd think, well, it's just manufacturing or something, and they'd be building, but it's just, I don't know, something about it. Weird, whatever.
Okay. I want to talk about the way that you dress. Okay. You got to be one of the best dressed. You were definitely the best dressed at the show. I mean,
that wasn't hard to do. That wasn't hard to do. Well, it's just a persona, I guess. I mean, I'm a musician, and I'm on stage. I literally 4 nights a week, oftentimes I'm on stage in front of a microphone, singing and playing. And then I told you, me and my wife had a company called Hi Hat Entertainment, and we produced music shows. And so I was on stage as an MC every week doing that. And so was she. I mean, she could do everything in that business. She could mix sound. She could MC the show. She just did everything. Because I'd be out playing gigs other places, or be, doing pool business or whatever, and she'd hold down the fort. And so she was very accomplished, professional herself. And she was a professional player too, so she knows what it's like to stand up under the crowd and take the heat and, try to do what you got to do. Yeah, she was a professional pool player. Yeah. She was a president of the women's WPBA there for a couple of years back in the early 2000s, probably. I don't know. She hasn't played in a lot of years. She hasn't played. We went up and saw some friends in Idaho maybe 2 years ago, and I searched out the pool room playing in there, and so they had a little weekly tournament, and I don't know how I talked her into coming down to the pool room, and she plays in the little weekly tournament, and we sat there and thought, and she finished like 3rd in the tournament or something. I said, no joke, she hasn't played a tournament or a match in probably 18 years. Not one. And she played in the tournament, and she did really good. And people thought, oh, you play amazing. You play great. Of course, she couldn't. She was playing 20% of what she was capable of. It's kind of funny. You'd be straight in and you can't make the ball. But that's how that goes.
So when you
yeah, she was an accomplished player. Still gives lessons and stuff. Great fundamentals, just great understanding of the game. And yeah, so pool, she understands pool backwards and forwards. Knows all the players. Then knows everybody, and everybody knows her. And she's just way more loved than I am. So,
how many cues have you made for her?
Who gave you that question to ask?
They just come out of this.
I made the first cue for her in 1994, and she played with that for years all through her touring, the pro tour stuff. She played with that one, and I think really only 2 cues, and every 2 cues, and then of course it's been 20 years since I made the last one, and then she says she sees really great cues sometimes. She says, I should have that cue. And I always say, you can't afford it. So that's kind of the running joke. Yeah.
Do you sponsor any players now?
No. I'll tell you. No, I never really have. But I'll tell you, the feather in my cap, I think, is the player Chris Reinhold, who was on the Moscone Cup a couple years, 2 years ago. Off and on plays with my cue, loves my cue, and the last year or so he's been playing with my cue. But to his credit, he paid for it, and he said, "I don't want any sponsorship." He dumped his sponsorship that he had and said, "I don't want anybody telling me where I need to go or what I need to do or why I'm not doing this or that. I don't want any strings to anybody." And he's one of my dear friends. He's from Ventura here, and he insisted on paying me for the cue. It's like, that I really respect that. It's not a money issue. I don't need the money from him, and he can afford it, but it's just the principle of it is he wants to pay for it and wants to stand on his own 2 feet. No.
Okay,
you
so
don't hear that very often, do you?
take us back to your first cue and how much it sold for.
He still has it.
No.
That one, the one I made in high school, wood shop, I still have, and of course it's atrocious. I was 16 years old. I didn't know anything, and I was in wood shop. I think I turned it on a wood lathe, not even a metal lathe, where I could do precision work and stuff. Or I might have used both. I don't know, but I got distracted halfway through it. The first cue I sold for $225. I think it was $225. Or I might have really gone nuts and sold it for $275, but it was one of the two. I think $225, and I got that cue back about 10 years ago. I found somebody that had it or ran across it and bought it from him. I've bought a few of my cues over the years that have come back, so I know I've got that cue, which I think was the very first cue I sold, and then I have one that has got to be in the top first 5 cues that I've made. So I've gotten a couple of those back.
Okay, of the
They were
cues
obviously just plain front cues. I made plain front cues, just what people call Merry Widows and that. I made those for a good couple of years, just wanting to develop a relationship, a reputation for making a good playing cue, which I did immediately. But here's a funny story. There's a Cuemaker in Santa Barbara. I grew up in the Valley in LA area, and about an hour and 10 minutes north is Santa Barbara. And there was a really good Cuemaker up there by the name of John Robinson. And people that are really into cues know his name, and they're, a collectible kind of thing. Really bizarre colors and really out of the box. He was not connected to the cue making world at all. The joint, the way you'll know it is the joint pin came out of the shaft. It was a metal, like 5/16, 18 metal pin that came out of the shaft and then screwed into the butt. So that's the way he did it. And they were a really good cue. And there was a real good player in our pool room by the name of Jim Gaudier that played with one of his cues. And so when he would come down, occasionally John would send cues down and he'd sell them at the pool room. And I bought one of John Robinson's cues. This was before I was making cues when I was a kid. And I played with that for a couple of years. And I still have that too. But then I went to John. I was in the construction business, grew up in the construction business, doing heavy concrete and excavation work and stuff. And then the business kind of fell out in the late 80s. There was building moratoriums and stuff. So I went up to John Robinson in Santa Barbara and I said, "John, you make a really great cue. But they're kind of expensive. And if you could make a nice plain front cue, I could sell a lot of them. And so I want to order some plain front cues." And he said, "No, I don't want to make them because there's no money in it." I thought, well, no money in it. I mean, we could still get pretty good money. They can't, whatever. So I decided I was going to make the cues myself. That's when I bought a lathe and bought materials and started learning everything I could to make cues, because I was going to make those, pretty plain cues. And I did. And I made a plain good player's cue for that first couple of years. And I used to go to the tournament in Reno every 6 months in June and December. And it took me about 2 years to realize he was right. There's no money in it. You can't make any money in it. So, but I moved on from there. I laid off the construction business, just and started making cues part-time or to kind of bridge that time. And then I never went back. So I put in a ridiculous amount of hours. And all I did is play pool and make cues. I was putting in 60 hours a week at least making cues, and then go to the pool room and trying them out and playing and selling a couple and go back and get back to work, and made a lot of sawdust.
So that's how you were making your living at the time, exclusively?
Yeah. Yep. Which was not much, but I don't know how I eked by. But I'll tell you what, I remember searching through the floorboards of my car and in the seats looking for change, coming to try to come up with enough money to go buy epoxy and stuff like that. That's how broke I was.
Okay, well, you've come a long way.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure
Now I just throw change out the window. That's how I roll now.
Just falling out off of you.
Everywhere. Yeah.
So the Hall of Fame of cue makers, you got to be in that, right?
No, not yet.
You got to die or something?
No, but there's a definite pecking order. The last Hall of Fame was in April, and they put in Thomas Wayne from Alaska, who was long overdue. And there's a pecking order that I would definitely, honestly, I may not have even accepted I was nominated and all that, but I wouldn't have even accepted it before Thomas got in it. He's so deserving. He's by far the most brilliant cue maker and most creative that there ever was. He's the only cue maker I can tell you that you can just line all the cue makers up looking at his work, and they don't even understand how he did it or what he did. Don't even understand it. Super, just a brilliant guy. He's an eccentric for sure, but yeah, this could not be more deserving. So,
okay, well,
yeah. Matter of fact, I just talked to Thomas recently, and he was showing me a picture of a cue that he made years ago, and he was saying he couldn't figure out how he did it. He couldn't figure out how he did it now. And he says, I'm going to have to go back through and find through my record and see if I can find drawings and stuff. He says, I just sat and studied, and I said, I can't figure out what I did. Very complicated stuff, and a true artist. So yeah, so there's that.
Of the percentage of cues what percentage of cues have you made for your inventory versus custom for a person?
Well, I'm about the weirdest cue maker you're going to talk to, and I'll tell you that right out front, and it's going to prove to be true. Because cue makers people always ask, well, how long is your waiting list and what's your back order and all that stuff? And it's like, I've gone through great lengths to not have waiting lists and back orders and customers waiting for cues. And I way would prefer just making what I want and then making it available to people. And that's really, I've been making cues since '88. So that's 34 or 35 years. And the majority of my cues I've just made and made them available. And I actually it's weird, I kind of discourage people ordering cues. I'd rather send them to a dealer or somebody that's got something I have. Or, I do take orders and stuff, but I don't even have an email address. It's so weird. It's like, this is not good business strategy. I would not recommend this, but it's now to the point, it's like people have to know how to get a hold of me. So now they know Sean King, and Sean King has my cell number, and they can get a hold of me. So I get texts from the Sean Kings of the world and said, hey, this guy at the pool room wants your number. Can I give it to him? Sure, go ahead. It's
layers on layers.
It's become like layers, yeah. And
you ever say,
I publicly apologize to everybody because there's an email address on my website, but it's been so overrun with spam and nonsense that I don't even haven't seen it in years. So people probably send emails thinking that I see them and I don't. And
It'd be funnier if you told them
yeah.
your email's broken.
Yeah, right. And I don't know how to fix it. Yeah, because of course, there was a period of time where people call up and they want you to put a tip on or to fix a cue or rewrap something. And I don't even work on anybody's cues, period. I do what I do, and that's all I do. And like I've only done one thing. I've kind of designed my cue the way it's constructed and joint and all that stuff, and it's never changed. Like I've never put a stainless joint on in my life. I've never put in an insert into a shaft. None of that stuff. I've just done what I do, and my machines are set up to do what I do, the dimensions that I do it, and that's all they do. So yeah, so you get calls, people want repairs. How many what?
How much do your cues weigh?
I prefer 32 ounces. Yeah. No, like 19, just 19 is like the middle, right there, the middle of the road. 19 and a quarter. More and more people like light cues. More like 18 and a half and stuff because they put extensions on them and do all other kinds of things. But yeah.
Chris, I got like 20 more. You got to get them in here while you can.
Well, can somebody order a plain Sneaky Pete from you to make, or
no.
No.
I've never made a Sneaky Pete ever. I think I've made one. And I think I'm using it as a break cue. I just threw it. I found it in the corner of the shop. I never made Sneaky Pete's. I never. I just came out of the gates swinging. I had to make a living immediately, and I put the work in immediately, developing the cue that I made. And I'll tell you one thing that I did not have going for me that other cue makers, like I saw the interview that you did with Austin the other day. He had a big advantage over me, is he knows what a good cue is. He knows fit finish. He knows, what a good cue is. I was not really a cue guy. So I didn't, when I was 21, 22 years old, I kind of had the one cue I used and that's it. And I just wasn't that fascinated with cues. And I didn't really know what makes a good cue. So I had to discover all that stuff by laying my cues next to great cues and realizing where I came up short, and get back to the drawing board and improve. So, Jerry Franklin from Southwest Cues was a friend of mine, and I used to go up there, and he had the greatest technique ever, which I use all the time, is because cue makers constantly get cornered with other cue makers and people that want to make cues and corner you and want to ask you all kinds of questions and everything. He had a great technique, is he would monopolize the conversation by asking me what I did, how I made cues, what joints did how did I do? He would bombard me with all kinds of questions of what I did. Didn't leave space for me to be picking his brain. Good technique.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, here's a good one. I call this, this is a question that you gave me, so I get to ask it to you. Do you think a cue can actually improve your pool game?
Yes. Emphatically, yes. The most obvious is it makes you want to play pool. So even somebody that buys a, an inexpensive decal cue, they may think it's the greatest thing ever and love it. That happens all the time. So that's going to make them want to play, and it's going to make them want to spend more time at the table. So that's automatically going to be a plus. The other thing is I think that important of a cue is you've got to feel it in this backhand. It's got to send a signal from what's happening on the ball. It's got to send a signal through the cue and up your arm and into your head and let you know where speed control is at, which is, so much of everything. And what it feels like when you really grab a hold of the cue ball, or what does it feel like when it's, it's deflecting, or all of these sensations are sensations that, a good cue translates. When you bang them on your hand and you hear a nice harmonic sound, that they're transferring energy real well. So if you put a rubber tip on the front of your cue, you put a felt cushion, then a rubber tip on the front of your cue. You couldn't play. You can't get any signal. You can't get any information of what you're doing. It's just mush, So yeah, a cue has to have a good resonance to the sound and a good vibration and resonance. Just like an instrument, violin or something, it has to have a good tone to it. And so yeah, that allows your brain to develop skills. So how did that sound? Was that convincing?
That's the best answer we've got. I didn't think of.
You froze on me a little bit.
Yeah, lost his connection. So where do you get your designs? I mean, where do you get the ideas or the designs that go into the cues that you make?
The Los Angeles Times. No, I come up with a little tiny element, some little tip of a point and some little thing that I think is interesting, and then just kind of build upon that. And I've always, people talk about, oh well, they use computers and this and that. I've always felt like if you can't design a good cue with a pencil, you're not going to be able to make it in the cue. Right. So I would often take a straight clean piece of maple, and there's the wrap line, and I just draw right on the maple, draw designs on there, and try things and see what seems to look good. And I just think well, first of all, I build what I like. I build designs and ideas and things that just strike my fancy and I like. That's it. I don't take any kind of direction from anybody else. I don't build anything custom in terms of the customer, saying they want this or they designed their cue or something. I don't do any of that. I just build what I like, and if they like it too, what a plus that is. So just come up with ideas, and then I often I become very good at ripping off my own designs. So I'll come up with a design that I really like, and then I'll morph it around and go, and I might make several of them, they become very popular. And then I twist it around and say, well, what if this thing did this? And I did that with this, and I just kind of change my own designs around and freshen them up and, renew my interest in it. And so I have spent time looking through art books. I've, just to try to get just some little flair idea. It's a weird canvas, being long and skinny. It's a weird dimensionally thing to try to fill. It's super important to me to build a visually balanced cue. When I was pretty fortunate when I came into the cue industry was a real transition. And Ernie Gutierrez, Gina Q, Thomas Wayne, Richard Blackie were at that pivotal time also, and building cues that were more of a conceptual art piece. And it used to be that there would be a 4-point cue with 4 veneers, and then some kind of fanciness, diamonds and dots and all kinds of fanciness in the butt that had nothing to do with the front of the cue. Well, at the turn of the time when I got my legs underneath me, and the industry really was making that change where things had to have a good visual balance. So the cue, when you look at the cue, the front and butt have to be colors and balance, and not like everything's up there and nothing down there and everything. It's just, you know what I'm saying? So that's the flow and design of a cue. All of that is real important to me. I'm not a traditional cue maker. I'm much more of a modern art kind of cue maker. So, there's people that like the traditional Zamboni type stuff. That's a whole world of their own, and I really respect it. But that's not where my taste and ideas lie.
Your cues do have a certain look to them. The way that the designs that you use, you can tell it's a McWorter cue from across the.
Yeah, I've developed a style and that I think is really important. It's kind of like you can hear the Beatles when you may never heard the song, but it's the Beatles or the Rolling Stones or Led Zeppelin or Neil Young or any of them. whether you like it or not, it's an identifiable sound. You know what it is. And I think that's really important. That might be the more important, well, it might be the most important thing in a longevity of a career is developing a style. Actually, I gave that advice to Cuemakers, early Cuemakers all the time, is the ones that make a stainless steel joint and a flat face joint and a 10 pitch, 3/8 10 and a 5/16 18 and offer all this variety and all that. I personally think that's a mistake. I mean, I think you have to define who you are, right or wrong. Find out what it is you want to do and do that. And then you become much more identifiable. If you just be a guy that, a mechanic that works on cues and fixes things and just as a jack of all trades, that's one way to go. But that's not the way to define yourself as a career or as a long-term, quote unquote artist.
So you're definitely an artist. We've got the music, we've got the cues. What else you got going? I'm sure there's something else. Music, cues.
Well,
what else do you create?
Magic, music, and cues. That's what Jan says. No, well, the magic was a time of my life then, and I learned a lot from it. Eric Nolan is still a dear friend of mine. The things that he taught me about presentation have followed in everything I do. I've produced documentary films. I've been involved in film work. I've had a lot of artistic interests, and there's some of the stuff I should probably put up on YouTube. Actually, I produced a documentary about a musician by the name of Mickey Jones, who is an actor you guys have all seen in many movies, a character actor. And he had a music career before he did that. And I did a live. We talked about this, I think, Sean, we did a live interview show for an audience of about 300 people. We sold out a theater and did just 2-man on stage and did a live interview show for like 2.5 hours, filmed that. And then later that came out into a documentary and added a whole bunch of footage to it. So yeah, I've done a lot of different, I've directed film. I've done a lot of different things that interest me. So,
can you tell us about where cue making has taken you as far as traveling and going different places from pool?
Well, I've been all over the country where there's been major tournaments, but the numbers start to stack up. I think the Super Billiards Expo, the Alan Hopkins Super Billiards Expo, I did not go to the first one, which was in Secaucus, New Jersey. And I've been to every one since then. And that's like 26 years. I think it's like 26, somewhere. I've kind of lost count, but I think it's about 26 years I've been doing that. I've been to Japan 24 times, I think. I used to go every year for 24 years. I was
any of the language?
I was probably what's that?
Can you speak any Japanese?
I used to speak a lot of it. I really studied at it pretty hard. It's actually one of the regrets of my life that I wasn't able to get over that hump. I got a pretty good vocabulary, and words still come back to me, but I wasn't able to really get over the hump. I could say a lot of things, and I could conjugate sentences pretty good, but then the difference between being able to understand what they're saying to you is got to get over that hurdle, So I regret not having got better at that, but you can only do so many things. And I kind of
is there
gave up
anything
on
you can't do? What are you terrible at? Let's start there.
I haven't found it yet. No, I mean, I'm terrible at a lot of things. I'm terrible at everything I don't try to do, I mean, you have to ask my wife what I'm terrible at. I've learned how to learn. And like I say, I don't think I was particularly talented at any one thing. When I played pool, I mean, in the beginning, I showed talent. I showed people had interest, and that I started picking up, because the people say if you don't show serious talent in the first 2 years, you're never going to be a good player. That people can really identify early whether somebody has got just the natural talent. to play. I don't know that I had the natural talent, but I learned how to play and by really discipline and working hard at it and really asking questions and learning as much as I could. And I got playing pretty good. And some people kind of took interest in my game and think, from pro tournaments and thinking that I could have actually, done something. But I was making cues that time, and by that time, and I definitely made a decision that I want to go that direction. I had I had a kid and I had to pay bills, and I definitely made a decision to make a living and pool through that medium.
Has your
Okay,
wife
so
has
go
your
ahead.
has your has your wife designed the cue for you?
No,
No.
no, no. It's just it's all out there. She walks in the door every once in a while, and uh, occasionally she just can't stand it and will clean my shop from top to bottom. Actually, about 6 months ago, we cleaned the shop, took the flooring out, put new floors in. She painted the shop, did a lot of really made it nice. And what a difference that made! What a difference it made in terms of me wanting to go into the shop and make things and feeling creative and being fun hanging out in there. What a difference that made. So, yeah.
You've got a cue shop in your house. You've got a music studio as well, right?
No, I used to record. Well, the first few records I've recorded a lot of tracks here at the house or in the shop. But I have a very dear friend here in town that built a studio in his house, and he's a builder, builds homes and custom homes, high-end homes, and he built a studio that is just unbelievable. It's gorgeous. It sounds great. The equipment is great. It's beautiful. So I go up there and work in his studio. And that's where I'm doing everything right now. I just love being in there. It's just everything's there. It's like all the tools are all in the right place, and drums are set up. They're always mic'd. You can just walk in and just play, and it's really great and beautiful. Lit well. It's gorgeous.
What an
So,
interesting life. And I know that you've definitely met some interesting people and some famous people. I want to mention one, Joe
yeah.
Rogan, and that's got to come up. You said he plays with your cue.
Yeah, he just sent me a text a few. Actually, I texted him. I sent him a picture during the Q show and showed him and told him, we missed him, and he just said he's so busy he can't see straight, which he is. I can't believe the schedule that he keeps, but he told me he's been playing great with my cue. He's just occasionally send me a text out of the blue, said, your cue plays so effing good. I can't believe it. But I think he's got several of my cues. I've never sold him one of them. He's bought them through different dealers and stuff. But my wife knew him better than I did, because she was the house pro at a place called the Hollywood Athletic Club, which was a famous pool room back in the late 90s. No, mid 90s, early 90s. Sheesh. She was a house pro there, and Joe was there and hung around and played pool. And so I kind of knew him from the pool room, but Jan knew him better than I did. Occasionally we'd see him at different events.
How many balls can Joe run?
Joe could play. Joe's a good player. Yeah. I mean, me or you have our hands full.
Okay.
Play. So yeah, he took lessons from Tony Robles, but he'd been around the pool room and he knows the real score. I mean, he knows the road hustlers. He knows what it's like in the pool room. He knows the etiquette. He knows the pool room. He's been there. It's he's not like a league player or something like that. Yeah, he's been in the pool room and knows the real drill.
Get him to come out to Derby.
I don't know that he's ever been. You know what? It's got to be weird for him now. That celebrity thing is a weird thing. I don't know. I thought, from what I understand, he handles it really well. He's very friendly with people. He's open. He does not, he doesn't hide, and he's not too protective. But it's got to be annoying. It'd be people looking at you all the time, and people wanting to, you're trying to just hang out with your friends and people interrupting you and that kind of stuff. So it's probably not easy for him to go like that. The Texas tournament, the Texas Open that just happened a couple weeks ago was in Austin, right? At Skinny Bob's.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he ever even popped in there.
Well, he's a busy guy. We've talked about a match between him and Manny Pacquiao for charity. I think that would be great. Like Joe gets an American player on his team, and Manny
a boxing match you're talking about, right?
No, Manny plays pool too.
No, I know he plays pretty good, but I'm just wouldn't that be a boxing match? Sheesh. Because Joe is a fighter, bona fide MMA fighter, but Manny is the champion and 100 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it wouldn't be fair for somebody.
Yeah, exactly. For somebody. Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting. Yeah, it'd be a great. That'd be fun. Pool match. Joe plays. He told me plays 3 or 4 days a week, and he's got guys that on his team and staff that are B players. He said that can give him a workout. So.
Okay. All right, Chris. You got some more questions? I've got just a few more.
So, how many shows do you do a year?
Music or cues?
Oh, cues.
Cool. Oh, I pretty much only do the Super Billiards Expo in Valley Forge, and then the Cue Collectors Show, which hasn't happened for a couple of years. But that's kind of all I do in terms of setting up. So really, the only consistent one is the Super Billiards Expo. But
okay,
like
music shows.
When the tournaments in Vegas are going on and stuff, I might go up there for a day or so and just fiddle around and see friends and stuff. But as far as doing the grind and setting up, doing a booth, I don't do that anymore.
So I'm not going to ask you who or when, but what's the most expensive cue you've ever sold?
12,000, I think, and that's not my market. I mean, I jokingly tell people I'm just a humble little $6,000 cue maker, and that's really what I do. I would rather build 2 $6,000 cues than one $12,000 cue. Well, one of the things is, I mean, you're going to get very different answers from me from a lot of these questions that you'll get from other cue makers. I've cut a different path, but one of the things is that customers always want to have one of a kind cues, and they always want design something just for me, and I want these kind of materials and colors, and I like this thing, but could design something specially for me. And I don't want to be a smart ass, but I don't say it, but I'd like to say, are you going to give me $100,000 for that cue? Well, of course not. You want me to give you a deal. Instead of being a $6,000 or $7,000 or $8,000 cue, you want me to give you a deal, and for instead of 8, you want to pay 6, and you want it to be a one of a kind. Well, I mean, I've got design. When I hit pay dirt and I hit a design that is great, that really works, that I love and the public loves, and it's really good, I'm going to make multiples of that design. There's designs that I've made that make a couple $100,000 off that design, and it's not like you don't make it want to. It's like asking the Beatles to write one song and they play it one time and just throw it in the closet. If it's good, you want to play it.
Right.
So, I don't play that.
People see it and know it's yours.
Yeah, and that's how I have that identifiable style, is because. But still, if I go hog wild on a cue, I might have made 40 of them, over 20 years.
So you actually make yours for playability, where a lot of custom cue makers on them high-end cues, they make them for collecting.
Well, it's not that simple. Everybody makes a cue for playability. Everybody's doing the best work they can and making a cue play the way that they want it to or they think it should. That's just very subjective. Some people like the feel of this cue and don't like the feel of that cue. And if people are doing good work, which means good machining and things fit well and things are tight and faces are clean and all this functional stuff is happening, then the cues are going to have a good resonance to them. Now, shapes and tapers and deflections and all that stuff are very specialized and an item of taste, elements of taste. But so the cues, my cues, great compliment is two people tell me they're very consistent, that they all play the same. My shafts have been interchangeable for more than 30 years, way more than 30 years, So if you get one of my shafts that's 30 years old, you can screw it right on one of my brand new cues and you're good to go. So the playability and the player friendliness of them is just been a given. That's just the way I've done things from the beginning. But the butt is a little bit thicker than a lot of cue makers. It's got the taper's a little bit different. It's a compound taper. It's not just a straight taper from the joint all the way to the butt. A lot of people just do a straight cone. Mine is a compound taper. It's a little fatter in the front and then tapers back a little bit. Makes the cue play a little bit stiffer, a little more, maybe a little bit more forward balanced. There's things about my cue that are identifiable and make them play the way that they do. And for the people that like that it's great. But there's all of our cues have got collectors. There's collectors I know that own 30 of my cues, 30, 40 of my cues. And obviously they're not playing with them. They're sitting in their collections, and and they might own 300 cues, and I got a big portion of that. So everybody has cues that just sit in the closet and don't get played. That's why I say if you come up with a great design, you're going to sell it to one guy and it's going to sit in the closet and never see the light of day again.
Right.
No.
Right.
No.
Now let's talk about your music. The Blues Man. Is that your favorite?
Yeah, I guess a roots blues guy. The name of my band is Hot Roux, ROUX, which is the roux in Louisiana parlance is the sauce that everything starts with, the onions and the sauce that etouffee and gumbo and jambalaya and all those start with, and everything gets thrown into it. So that's kind of what my music is, very much a gumbo. It's just all kinds. It's definitely got country flavor to it, a big blues flavor to it, roots rock and roll flavor to it. It's got a New Orleans-y flavor. There's some Zydeco, Cajun kind of flavors. So it's all kinds of music that's thrown in one. And that's just kind of where my taste lies. And it's all groove, fun, feel good kind of music.
Singer and drummer. Is that correct?
Singing drummer.
That's unique.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's been a lot of great ones over the years, but it is kind of a little bit strange. I often joke when we're playing someplace new, is that I'll tell them from the stage that it's the drummer that's singing, because you're staring at the stage thinking somebody's a ventriloquist, because you're not seeing the guitar players. Nobody's stepping up to the mic, and people don't think that to think to the drummer, look to the drummer. But I mean, I've got so used to it now, I don't even think anything of it. And being an entertainer is definitely more challenging by sitting behind the drums or even sitting behind a piano. We think of rock stars, they're guitar players, and they're out, or Mick Jagger prancing around the stage and all that. So if you're a piano player and you're stationary, or if you're a drummer, you're stationary, it's a little different animal. But I'm a little more conversational in performances, and joke around and get people laughing and have fun, and that's the entertainment side of it.
So where can people go see you perform?
Well, out here in California, I mean, we do some residencies. I play every Tuesday night. I'm going to play in about an hour and a half of a club in Ventura, at the Ventura Harbor, that we've been playing every Tuesday for probably eight years, I think. And been just playing that from 7 to 9 every Tuesday night. And it's got a good following, and it's right in the harbor, and it's a beautiful view, and it's just a fun gig. But then we play weekends all around, a couple 100-mile radius from here in Ventura. Play in Bakersfield more than I would like. That's a couple hours away and hot as hell up there. Ventura is like the nicest weather in the United States. It's literally that in San Diego. The weather is amazing here. So there's a lot of tourists that come up from LA around Ventura, but Santa Barbara and all around within a couple-hour drive. And then we play up in Northern California quite a bit too. Got some locations up there playing Sacramento and San Francisco, and around that area too. When we go out on a touring with the band, which for maybe a week or 10 days, kind of at the most that we'll go out.
I stayed in Reading for about a month.
Say that again.
So I stayed in Reading for about a month.
Yeah, played in Reading.
Way up there.
Yeah.
Went to a place called Whiskey Town Lake. There's a lake that's got a town that was flooded, and the town's still underneath there, and you go snorkeling or scuba diving down underneath there. It's pretty
cool.
Kind of like Lake.
Yeah, people can find my music on Spotify or on Apple Music or any of those. It's Hot Roux, ROUX. And it's all original material. So we've got like 5 records out of all original songs, and we've got probably 60 songs in the rotation that the band does. It's all original material. So, you're not going to get rich doing it, but you're going to have a hell of a fun time. And it's a lot more rewarding to go play the same clubs that cover bands play, that are just doing Tom Petty or whatever else, and go in and just do all original music and have it work and be, do well. So at least you get the artistic reward out of what you've created, the songs I've written, and it's good.
You're an original, Jerry, for sure.
Well, thank you.
I'm glad I got to meet you this week. I feel like I made a friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as I continue to do these interviews, maybe you can give me some feedback and help our questions get better.
Yeah. What are you guys doing to promote the site and get eyeballs on it? That's the hardest thing, right? I mean, the content's having fun, but the real work is trying to drive people to your page.
Right. So of course, I mean, Facebook is most of it. And then I'll put some clips and stuff on TikTok, but most of it is finding the word, the hashtag whatever to send it to whoever's got the most viewers. Like you got YouTube content, there's 101.7 million followers on there, and like 30 million videos just with that word. YouTube content, YouTube guru, new video. There's just different words that you can use.
We don't know what we're doing, Jerry.
So when you put something on Facebook, and because you have a YouTube page, right? So this is going broadcast directly to your YouTube page. But when you put that YouTube link on Facebook,
right,
and then people watch it, does it get credited as being viewed on Facebook, or does it go up be credited as being viewed on YouTube?
It'd be on YouTube, because when you click that link, it takes you directly to YouTube to where they can subscribe and like and share. So like I've done, like the broadcaster that does up in Sacramento at Oscar's Pool Room. What's the name of it? I'm drawing a blank. Collins. Yeah, but what's the name of his page? It's
Post Up.
Post Up. Forgive me, Collins, for not word. Post Up. Okay. So when he does a match up there, he's got YouTube being shown, how many people are watching on YouTube, live broadcast on YouTube, how many people are watching on Facebook, and how many people are watching on, whatever the other Twitch or one of the others that he's got going.
Right.
So the Facebook is always the largest, I think, is always the largest number. People that are watching it on Facebook. So are people watching your content exclusively on Facebook, or everybody, if they to see it, has to go to YouTube?
They have to, because everything, like you're talking about, if they go on Facebook, they're watching it. I think they're watching it live, where this is not live. This is recorded and then uploaded.
Got it. So, right. That's right. That makes sense.
So I posted.
Chris, we do have Collins scheduled for an interview tomorrow at 5:00 his time. So California.
Oh, good. Definitely tell him that I said hi, and I'm a big fan. He's got a real good. I've done well. There's one match on YouTube right now. Oh yeah, on his channel a match that John Schmidt and Oscar Dominguez played 3 days worth of one pocket. It's like 30 hours of one pocket. And I was there doing commentary with him for 30 hours, all 3 days. And I've done a lot of there's more matches. I'm finding matches coming up on YouTube of me doing commentary for AccuStats back in the mid 90s.
Wow.
So some of that stuff it goes back a long time. But Collins has a real good atmosphere and vibe about what he does. It's really loose and it's conversational and it feels very authentic, but it's not stupid. And he's got a good thing going, it's interesting because the personality of the streamer and the host can set the tone of what the show is and what other people are doing,
Right.
And he's got a good vibe about what he's doing. I'm really a fan. He's a really technically savvy dude too. He's producing
at the top of the game.
He's producing a really good product, and he's got a mobile way to to travel a little bit. And smart guy. I look forward to going back up there and working with him again. He creates a good environment. But it's interesting because it's not stupid and it's not totally unprofessional. So a lot of these broadcasts that you see are streamers that are unprofessional, that people don't really know what they're talking about, or that it just doesn't seem professional. He's got it really loose, but it still seems professional. So interesting how he's kind of struck the balance. So, but I can tell you, I've got a lot of opinions about streaming and about commentary and all of that. I feel like most shows go way too heavy on the instructional part of the game. I think they're like some of them are just 90-10, and all they're going to do is talk about, he should play the shape on this pocket, and he's going to go 2 rails around, and it's just bores me to tears. I really feel like it should be about almost a 50-50 balance between instructional and stories and characters and history and just fun stuff that I like the commentary to be that if I'm driving for 3 or 4 hours, I hear it in the background and I don't even see the table, and it's engaging and it's entertaining.
Right.
If it's all about just what's on the table and I feel like it's all just instructional, it's just gets boring. Especially the people that are hardcore players and are watching that kind of content, they probably play pretty good and they know what's going on. They don't need you to tell them everything. It's a smaller percentage of people that are just learning from the ground up. But when Billy and Danny were in there, at their best, or Grady, you're hearing stories and history and all of the content that you guys are trying to achieve right now. You guys are talking to players and you're hearing those pool room stories, and you're hearing about, learning the history of who these players were, because that's the content that interests you. And I think most pool matches, there's room for that, and they don't access it. So there's another one of my opinionated positions.
So we got our second interview with Robert LeBlanc here in a little bit, and he's got all kinds of stories. And
yeah, he was there.
Yeah, he was
there for a lot of years. I've known Robert many years. I really like Robert.
Jay Helford helped us out a bunch too. I mean, his video went like overnight, went from 5 or 6 views from when I posted it to the next day it has 7,500. So
nice.
There was something there.
Filipinos. We got like 2,000 Filipino subscribers overnight.
Yeah, beautiful. So now those are people, would you say 90% of those came at it through Facebook?
No. I think the majority of it come through YouTube.
Okay.
I'm a member of all these different pool groups, and a lot of your pool groups, they don't want you posting videos in their groups. They just want tournament information. So I've got my own started my own little channel on YouTube, the Pulling Around Show, and I'll post there first before I post anywhere else. And trying to get it to grow like that through YouTube. I try to make some YouTube shorts, which the shorts don't seem to be drawing that much attention unless it's a trick shot, because I guess the short videos, just commentary is not that interesting, because you don't hear the whole story, you just hear a clip of it. But we're getting there. I mean,
you're feeling your way through it.
We are. They said it takes 3 years, average about 3 years before you start making money on YouTube. You have to have 1,000 subscribers, and then you have to have 4,000 hours of watch time, or you have to have 10 million YouTube short watches. So I'm trying to do kind of a combination of both. So a week ago Tuesday, when we interviewed Jay, we had 195 followers. Within 2 days, we were up to a little over 2,000. So something
Nice.
clicked there, but they were just clicking subscribe to the video and they weren't watching the video. So I don't know, because the watch time stayed around the 3:30, and it's up to almost 600 now. So I just gotta keep posting.
Well, just keep finding a way to have fun along the way.
I enjoy it.
Like every endeavor, you really is about enjoying the road, enjoying the path.
Well, my whole vision for this is to capture the history of the game, and talk to people like Jay and like Robert, and let them tell their stories. But it's also to go to the older pool halls and get the history of the older pool halls where these people have played, the ones that are still open.
Right.
And then talk to the Cuemakers. Go to Diamond, go to Chicago to the Tweeting Factory where they make the chalk and tips and stuff. I want to go do stuff like that as well. It's just being able to
the history, the things that interest you.
It is. I can't really work a full-time job right now because I was in a wreck 3 years ago and broke my femur, and it's not healing back. So I have nothing but time on my hands right now. So, and pool has been a passion of mine since I was 6 years old, and I'm almost 50.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good for you. I can congratulate you guys on what you're trying to build. I love the history of the game. I love those stories, and I've done a lot of interviewing myself and through many different contexts, but just having conversations. I met the Lizard, when the other night, a few nights ago, when we were there at the pool room, and I'd heard that name, but I wouldn't have been able to pick him out of a lineup. And what an interesting guy, So it was fascinating to just pull these stories out of him,
That was a good time.
What's that?
That was a great time.
Yeah, it was. He's truly a character.
Well, let's let you go. And we've got somewhere to be, Chris, on another interview. But this is one of my favorite people I've met from this channel so far. If we hadn't done this, I probably would have never met you, Jerry.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't have. We hit it off instantly, so I'm sure we'll do plenty of things together. Yeah, Chris, nice to meet you. I'm sorry I didn't meet you when I was back there, but
we appreciate your time, and
we'll make it happen.
One of these days, I'm gonna get to the Super Billiard Expo too. So if you're there, I'm sure stop by and say hi.
Absolutely. Nice to meet y'all.
Yes, sir. All right, guys. We want to thank Jerry for joining our show. If you like content like this, hit the subscribe button down below. Give us a thumbs up and leave us a comment and let us know how we're doing. And we'll see you next time on the Pulling Around Show.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.